and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti. For the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. And we got a good conversation coming up right now, Ralph. Which roster is better heading into the Wednesday Night Wars? Is it AEW or WWE NXT?
Yep.
I'll let you start, Ralph.
Yeah, so I think at this current juncture, based on who's on what roster, I definitely think that AEW has the slight edge. I think if we were having this conversation maybe a year or two ago and you look at all of the talent that's gone through NXT, you'd have to lean towards NXT. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from NXT because I think that they certainly have a great roster. But when you talk about some of the more established guys, like they have guys that can go out there and perform, and they have guys that are top level talent that the fans will obviously invest in, like your Johnny Garganos, your Ciampas. But when you look at some of the more established guys, like guys that are proven draws, you've got Jericho there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard to overcome from the outstart.
And John Moxley,
of course. So that was going to be my next point. And then you go to like maybe their level 2 of guys, and you got guys like Kenny Omega's, Hangman Page, if you want to consider him up there. You've got guys like Pac. You got the Young Bucks. So I think that they might have the stronger roster. I'm not saying their shows are necessarily better. We're just comparing rosters and rosters. So right now, I think at this current juncture, AEW does have the better roster.
Now I'm going to put a poll above my head right now. Click the eye above my head. Let it get your vote in, AEW or NXT. Which roster you think is better? Now, here's how I would dissect this. First and foremost, name notoriety and popularity.
Yep.
Obviously, is AEW for the sheer fact that they have guys from WWE that people already know. They have Jericho, they have Moxley, they have Pac, they have Kenny Omega, who is arguably the best wrestler in the world. So in that regard, they have that. In-ring talent-wise, this one could be debated, I think. It all depends on what kind of wrestling you're looking for. If you're looking for a highly athletic, fast-paced spot fest, I think AEW has the edge on that with guys like the Young Bucks, the Lucha Brothers, SCU, Kenny Omega, Pac. Obviously, those guys are there. If you're talking about like the old school style, storytelling, technician, everything's smooth, with your fair share of spots in between, I think NXT has the better roster.
Yep.
You look at guys like Johnny Gargano, who could tell a story in the ring. Adam Cole could tell a story in the ring. Even Matt Riddle has done his fair share of storytelling. The Velveteen Dream, when it comes to charisma, I think no one on either of these two rosters could be more charismatic than the Velveteen Dream. I'm sure I'm going to get hate comments for that comment, but still, I think NXT might have the edge there. And I think also if you break it down into individual rosters, for example, like you have your main roster, your main talent guys, the top guys, AEW's better. The mid card, I think right now, NXT is, I think it's 50-50 on the mid card.
I think AEW is much more top heavy. Like their top guys, I think, are more established and probably more well known than the top guys or the roster throughout with NXT.
Right.
But once you get past the middle of the pack with AEW and you get to like your Joey Janela's and your Jimmy Havoc's and guys like that, I mean, there's guys in NXT that blow those guys out of the water 10 times over.
Right. That's true. And that's kind of what the point I'm saying here. So like you go to there's a lot of mid-card guys in NXT right now that can easily be the top of NXT right now, where, Matt Riddle's getting an NXT championship match this coming Wednesday. You got Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee, who, they're big guys that can do amazing things athletically. You got Cameron Grimes that is on the low card. There looks like they're building him up. So I think in that regard, NXT has a lot more potential to build their stars. But AEW, you look at their mid card right now, Hangman Page, Pac, I guess, is a mid carder right now. Shawn Spears, guys like that. So,
and you got to think about too, you have NXT UK, which we know they bring guys over and go back and forth sometimes, but I'm not necessarily considering them mainstays. Like Walter, obviously amazing talent. Mustache Mountain, really good tag team. Tyler Bate, obviously having his great match against Walter. Rhea Ripley, who seems like she's going to be maybe a mainstay with NXT.
So. I think Pete Dunne and Rhea Ripley have...
Pete Dunne, that was the next guy I was going to mention too.
I think they're on actually working on moving from the UK to Florida so that they can be NXT full time.
If we were going to have this conversation with NXT all time, I would definitely pick NXT because you just look at the amount of...
There's a much bigger sample size too.
Well, of course, but I mean, even if you go back, maybe a year ago, and you had some of the guys that moved over to the main roster, you have Ricochet, Drew McIntyre moved up probably more than a year ago, but he came through NXT.
Mm-hmm.
Samoa Joe, Nakamura, which is obviously a couple of years ago at this point, but Aleister Black, probably a guy who's being underutilized right now. Guys like that. Those are guys like, I feel like if they had those guys right now, I would definitely lean more towards NXT, especially a guy like Aleister Black, seeing some of the matches he's put on.
Right.
Andrade, he's another name that comes to mind, really helped establish NXT as one of the better brands. They've all put on great performances, great matches, and really helped fill out that whole roster. Right now, I think NXT's biggest problem is because they've had a lot of their guys move up to the main roster, you've got your top guys, and then it starts to get a little slim as far as like actually established guys, because NXT was always good at establishing a strong roster throughout. And I think they're definitely working towards that with guys like Keith Lee,
Dominik Dijakovic.
Him. And Punishment Martinez, he's another guy that I think, well, I know they changed Damian Priest, whatever you want to call him. Guys like that. So they're rebuilding right now. But
I think one thing that NXT, and this is probably like the worst comparison of the two, because I think both of them, this is probably their weakest part of their roster, is the women's division. Now, AEW might have the slight edge right now because they have Awesome Kong, another name people remember. And if you watch Glow, you know her as the Welfare Queen. So I think they have the slight advantage in that case. But you look at that women's division and it's like, well, who's there that can be a star or can be a name that people are going to remember for having great matches? NXT, you kind of have this situation where Shayna Baszler is kind of dominating the women's division right now, but that's only because there's women right now that have yet to be on TV, and I think are going to be a huge part of the NXT roster for at least the next 12 months with Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo. You have Candice LeRae, who could potentially be the next NXT Women's Champion after Wednesday night. Mia Yim, right now I'm not a big fan of her, but some people like her. You have Io Shirai, who is an awesome heel. Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, who are part of Shayna Baszler. Who knows if that means they're all going to go up to SmackDown or Raw in the future. I'd like them to stay, but I think the NXT women have a lot more potential right now than what I'm seeing with the with the AEW women. Yep. Yes, they have Britt Baker. Yes, they have Awesome Kong. But after that, I think it's still to be determined. The Joshis, they're very mixed right now. Some people love the Joshis like Hikaru Shida and Riho. And some people are like, that was the worst match on the card at All Out. So I think that's where they're the weakest. Now, AEW, I think, hands down, have the best tag team division. And right now, NXT, outside of the Street Profits and Undisputed Era, what tag teams are there? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I mean, if you want to consider Mustache Mountain, but they're not mainstay.
Right.
They're more NXT UK.
So other than that, you have the Forgotten Sons, but their name explains it themselves. They're forgotten.
Yeah.
And then I honestly cannot think of another tag team in NXT right now. Someone in the comments, please help me with naming tag teams that can help NXT's roster right now. And this also is just because there was a while where WWE just hijacked the NXT roster.
Yeah.
Thank God Johnny Gargano is still in NXT, I think, because he hasn't been on any show yet.
I'm sure he's going to make his return.
Yeah.
And I believe Tommaso Ciampa's close to coming back.
Yep.
So that's a good thing as well for them.
Yep.
But the other thing WWE can do is they have the luxury of calling back some guys. I mean, we saw them do Breezango and
that's right, Breezango. Yep.
So that's another tag team. But we saw them do that with Tyler Breeze and Fandango. So
Cruz as well.
Yep. So who's to say they can't do that with a guy like Kevin Owens? I mean, and then you talk about a guy like Drew McIntyre, more established names that have been on the main roster. that's how WWE has WWE has the luxury of doing that and being able to compete with AEW, because now your top tier guys in AEW, like your Chris Jerichos, your Moxleys, yes, they're big names, they're draws, especially a guy like Jericho who's been doing this for so long, but it doesn't necessarily tilt everything directly in AEW's favor.
Right.
You know, because you have more established guys. So especially a guy like Aleister Black, I'd love to I mean, he's not being utilized right now. They're not doing anything with him.
True.
Put him back in NXT. He's one of the bigger stars that's come through NXT. He was having great matches right before he left. Send them back.
Yeah. Now I'll close the conversation with this one question. You take a match. Let's say we have this dream card that Kenny Omega once said, you know, if we have one giant promotion, Kenny Omega is on the main event.
Yep.
With someone representing AEW. Who do you have represent NXT? Who's the top guy right now? Do you make it Adam Cole, Matt Riddle, Johnny Gargano?
Depends what you want to go with. If you want in-ring quality, you're probably going to go with Johnny Gargano. If you're going to go for storytelling, you're probably going to go for Adam Cole, because there's the whole history of him getting kicked out of the Bullet Club.
True. Yep.
And having Cole rise up to the occasion and become this huge star for NXT.
Matt Riddle, just because you have the legitimacy of Matt Riddle. And
if I'm going to pick, I'm going to probably say Johnny Gargano, because he's proven to me over the past couple years that he's the guy that can live up to a standard that's right there with Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I agree.
He's probably their best in-ring talent right now.
I agree.
Most consistent.
Definitely. So let us know in the comments below why you say either AEW or NXT has the better roster. Don't forget to like this video all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. And for the best conversations in AEW, WWE, NXT, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti, and thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.